the main event of Rampage is
Long-term
another
feud
feud.
here.
Do you think this feud is done, or do you think we're seeing more of this? Um, and I think what we saw tonight out of the Machine, Brian Cage, is just I think the fans are going to slowly start to get behind him if they keep seeing him more. And because Team Taz obviously is one of the top heel teams, but it's hard not to root for Ricky Starks. I mean, the guy is a star, and he's got that cocky charisma that is fun to root for. And so I think you have Cage and Powerhouse kind of have a rematch, but it was fun watching Cage just throw around Ricky like a rag doll, man. That guy, his power is like we've said before, it's unmatched. The stuff that he can do, and it was just a power of numbers that ultimately led to Ricky Starks getting the victory, the title defense of the FTW title. But any one-on-one match, I mean, he was just dominating nonstop in this one, and I don't know where they go with this with Team Taz. You know, obviously Team Taz has done Brian Cage dirty, and I think ultimately he's got to avenge that and make them pay for that, and so he can move on, close that chapter, and move on, because they screwed him over, and they're
Yeah.
continuing to screw him over. The Machine is such a powerful person. I mean, he could take on all three guys at once.
He did kind of
Yeah,
at
he
points in
has
this
been
match.
actually. He
Yeah.
has been. He's been
Doesn't
outnumbered.
feel fair.
It doesn't feel fair, but even being the Machine, they have their limits, you know. So I hope, I'm very intrigued where we see after this. You know, the Machine showed us some great stuff, as we, you know, the strength, the power, the control that is absolutely incredible. And Ricky Starks, I think he took a lot of abuse, and ultimately, you know, he came out on top. But I like seeing both these guys on TV more, you know. And the main event spotlight of Rampage was fitting. The back and forth promo, I think both guys, it was a short and sweet, but they delivered. Once again, I do love that backstage main event promo style that Mark Henry does. We saw it to open the show, and we saw it to close the show. But what do you see happening from here on out? You know, we always try to, you know, look in our crystal ball here at Dynamite Download and Fantasy Book, but like, what do you see happening with the Team Taz turmoil with Brian Cage?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna ask me, truthfully, like I think that this needs to be over.
Yeah,
I think it's best for both parties. I personally, and this isn't a negative thing. I mean, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, and I just think that, you know, Starks needs to be in a pairing with someone who can go on the mic with him like he can, and
yeah,
the size disparity between him and Cage just makes things feel awkward. I think that if I were booking, there's two things that I would do with Cage, and I would present them to Brian Cage in this way. I would say, you know, hey man, like I think you would be a killer in a feud with John Moxley. I think that he and Mox in-ring styles could really work well together. And I think a program with another vet like
sure.
Mox could get the crowd going. It and I would be intrigued because I think, again, Mox is a guy who I think Mox needs something. I think he needs a program.
True.
I know he's kind of involved with Lance Archer right now, but I mean, Cage, Lance Archer, and Mox would be an interesting dynamic. But I think that Cage and Mox, their offense and their styles, how brutal they are with each other, could really
Mm-hmm.
work. And I think that Moxley's one of those guys who gets better when he's hit hard, and Cage
Right.
is the type of guy who can do that. So I think that they would work well together in the ring. Or I would present him with, hey man, like we at AEW, we have the ability to have the forbidden door opened.
Right.
And I think that Brian Cage in Impact, the guy's a Hall of Famer in Impact. Brian Cage
Right.
is a big deal in the landscape of Impact. And
Right.
I think that him going over there, I'd like to see him in a feud with Morrissey. I'd like to see him maybe getting involved in a program with Moose, like the big guys there. I think that even him in a program with Chris Bay. Chris Bay is a young, talented, charismatic guy
Yeah.
that could benefit from being in a program with Cage. But I just think that if you had Cage be more involved in it with Impact, with his history there,
Right.
and with sort of what happened here, I think maybe he could go and rediscover himself and gain his confidence going back to Impact a little bit. It's a former Impact heavyweight champion, one of the more dominant guys in the recent history of Impact. And maybe he could then tap back into why he was one of the Mount Rushmore signings for Tony at the time. And again, I think that Starkman Jones, he's an undeniable star. I think that he needs to be in a program with a guy more similar to him in size, and that can go with him on the mic. So that's kind of where I think that this is. We've already seen Cage against Hobbs. We've already seen. I mean, I think that we've seen some of that play out. I think that Team Taz needs to move on to a new target. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, like we're seeing in the chat and stuff, like the injury didn't help out, and then it kind of fizzled out, and there's still story left to tell.
Yeah.
And they're trying to finish telling it when unfortunately it's maybe not hitting at that time. But I think this match was great, and it would be fun to have Team Taz feud with Mox, kind of give him a higher spot on that.
Yeah.
In terms of Brian Cage, looking at the landscape of some heels, I mean, I mentioned before, I want to see like a battle of the heavyweights. I want to see Cage go against the likes of Miro, the likes of Wardlow.
Yeah. I like that.
There's things of that, Nick Camarado, like any of the big men. I want to see battle of the big men. And we know the Machine has, unhuman strength. And so
inhuman strength.
Inhuman strength,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Inhuman strength.
Inhuman strength. And even, another battle, battle with Lance Archer too. But I want to see the heavyweights go at it for sure. And I think that would be a lot of fun. Have a couple big heavyweight matches, and then, try to see how things are going with that. And then you can start to develop a storyline from there.
You got me thinking storylines, man. I mean, honestly, we've been talking about what we would do with the factory. Imagine if Cage, wanted to get back to basics after losing to Ricky Starks and get back to getting back to the basics and trying to join the factory. I would love Cage in the factory. That would him and Camarado as a tag team. Sign me up, man. Holy smokes, right? I mean, wow.
In the Machine,
that would be great, man. And the Machine, those two could tear some people up, right? I mean, that would be kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe that's my new idea. You might have just given me something there.
And help, then you could have them go against like the likes of Bear Country, even Jurassic Express with Luchasaurus in there. Yeah. And same thing with the big guys, like Luchasaurus is so over. I mean, Cage is, we're pushing him to be babyface because his offense is so fun as that. And, we're seeing that in the chat, going against the Pinnacle. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could
I just nodded along.
If Cage ever kind of, I know the history was there, if Cage ever helped out Darby, I think you're automatically he automatically adds
that makes
tons of points to his babyface run.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've been talking about how Brian Cage, could be a babyface in AEW, and that's a great point with the Pinnacle outnumbering Darby and Sting, and really, kind of beating them up and doing the gang warfare. Cage versus Wardlow, Cage joining up with Darby on his side, that would be a killer one, man. I like that idea.
Remember back in the day when that feud. Team Taz and Darby feud where Cage kind of like held them back, was kind of like, long-term storytelling with the Sting, kind of the respect for the Stinger. So
I like that a lot. That's a great call.
You have the muscle to protect Darby.
Yeah.
Darby has a huge arsenal as a backup with Brian Cage.
Love that idea.
I think you kind of, What more could you ask for in backup for Darby Allin? Like,
Yeah. And
you're
then
bringing the
as
machine.
the chat's blowing up about it, then Cage going against MJF. How great would it be to see MJF piss his pants standing in the ring against Cage, right? Him
Yeah,
going
who
toe
has
to
he
toe
gone?
against MJF.
He's
That would
never
be
gone against a
awesome.
big man like that.
Right. That'd be awesome. I mean, how much would that put Cage over, just having MJF just cowering in fear of him? I love it. And then maybe that's when he learns how much he misses Wardlow, or how much he should appreciate the War Dog. I love it. I don't know. I that's a great call by you. Really like that.
Yeah. So and you can have that drill claw into a coffin drop would be pretty epic.
Now, dude, look at you.
Give it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Looking by SPD. Choo choo, baby. You got me hyped now.